In October, Consumer Reports published an article where they reviewed a number of automated driving systems. Shockingly for Tesla owners, Consumer Reports ranked GM and especially their sub-brand Cadillac as the best semi-autonomous software-hardware package on the market. While there have been numerous responses to this on the internet, they mostly speak to the weighting and other aspects of the report. They don't really get into the technical details and whether or not we can tell from the Consumer Reports article if Tesla or GM actually has the better self-driving software. Let's take a look and see if Consumer Reports is right. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. Let's look more closely at the recent Consumer Reports research on full self-driving, where they examined cars by Nissan, Volvo, Cadillac, and Tesla. As Tesla and Cadillac were rated far better, I'll focus on them here. The testing criteria: capability and performance, ease of use, clear when safe to use, keeps the driver engaged, and unresponsive driver. So first, Consumer Reports poorly describes how these stack up numerically. There's no table I could find specifying the quantitative values. There's no statement concerning weighting of the different categories. This is poor, science. They should be very clear about all of this, and a table is a minimum necessity for a comparison like this. The only real grading is a yellow for neutral, light and dark green for good and better, and light and dark red for worse and worst, respectively. We could guesstimate some numbers for this, like maybe 50 out of 100 is neutral, 60 is light green, and 80 is dark, and then maybe 40 is light red and 20 for dark red. This at least gives us some sort of numerical comparison. So using these numbers, Tesla would get a 220 score, and GM's Super Cruise would get a 270. So a significantly higher score. So again, assuming these numbers and even weighting for all categories. Most people have assumed the weighting is the same for each category, which is problematic for sure. But let's focus here on the tech criteria and see if we can elucidate what's going on in these categories. I'm not really going to focus on the ease of use or clear when safe to use, except as noted below. In a moment, let's look at the tech, but first, if you enjoy this video, definitely make sure you like it because that's how YouTube's algorithm works, and if you want to see more of these, of course, subscribe. And a quick shout out to my patrons on Patreon. It's been a good ride so far. Thank you guys so much for your support, and we've had good conversations on Discord as well, so definitely make sure you sign up to Patreon and then you can join us for that. Check the link below. Also, a quick shout out to Zenly Music for all of his help composing the music at the intro and out of this video. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. And if you're in the market for a new Tesla, feel free to use our referral link in the description. If you do, you get 1,000 free Supercharger miles, and so do we. So let's break things down a little bit. First, capability and performance. Here, Tesla scores a light green, or 60 points on our scale, to GM's yellow, or 50 points. As many note, this category really should be weighted as heavy as all the others combined, but let's put that aside for now and focus on the tech. The next category is keeps drivers engaged. Here, Super Cruise demolishes Tesla according to the Consumer Reports ranking. GM scores, 60 points on my scale, while Tesla is a mere 20 points. Next is Unresponsive Driver. Again, here, GM is rated better than Tesla according to Consumer Reports, but to a much smaller degree. GM scores a 60 to Tesla's 50 on my numeric scale. The other category I just want to touch on is clear when safe to use. This is not really technical, but worth mentioning since this is a category that GM scores the highest ranking in. They score an 80 to Tesla's 40 here. Just to note, Tesla is available everywhere it currently deems safe to drive, and this is done on the fly, while Super Cruise is only available on specified roads. From driving a Tesla, it's very clear when it is available since a blue steering wheel light comes on, though it is a little bit smallish, but full self-driving will not engage if the car does not deem it safe to drive on this given road. So in short, Super Cruise is not available in nearly as many places, and it does not seem much more clear from videos when it's available than is full self-driving. So now let's look more closely at capability and performance. This is the one area Consumer Reports rates Tesla the better choice, and in fact the best choice out there. I'll quote them here, quote, "The systems were tested on their ability to automate speed control and steering. We looked at how well the car stays centered in their lanes, how often they touched lane lines, and how many times they crossed those lines. We measured each system's performance on straightaways, on curves, in lane merges, and during lane changes. We also evaluated their ability to control speed on the highway, in stop-and-go traffic, approaching a car ahead, and when the car ahead had left the lane." End quote. Consumer Reports states GM and Tesla are the clear winners here, staying in their lanes and working properly. Not much more is stated about the quality of their autopilot functionality, which is a little bizarre considering how important that is. The rest of the paragraph discusses Nissan and Volvo, and they don't rate very well at all. It's thus very hard to evaluate how the two scored, aside from the light green and yellow colored markers, which indicates Tesla did marginally better than GM. So again, here looking at Full Self-Driving 1, and remember this is not Full Self-Driving Beta yet, of course, which is substantially better, but we're still looking at Full Self-Driving 1. But FSD 1 definitely appears to perform better relative to GM, but I have not driven the GM system, so I can't directly speak to that. As far as keeping the driver engaged is concerned, Super Cruise uses eye tracking while Tesla and the others use steering wheel force. I agree, eye tracking is a more convenient technology for engagement because it's a pain in the butt to have to keep moving the steering wheel around, but does that make it better? I think not. It's very easy to zone out with your eyes just kind of facing forward, half open, staring ahead. I mean, that's basically just road hypnotism, and as I drove a long ways yesterday, I'm very familiar with it right now. Moving a steering wheel, in my experience, is much more active and forces you to evaluate the situation every period of time, which is approximately 24 seconds for Tesla, according to Consumer Reports. So, of course, Consumer Reports worries that these systems can be defeated, and Tesla's more easy to defeat. You can use an ankle weight or something like that hung on the steering wheel, or I guess even an orange or a water bottle. But this is actively disabling the system and shouldn't really be held against any company. And certainly you could do this with eye tracking too, right? By putting on sunglasses or even those silly novelty glasses that have little eyeballs on them. That would certainly fool Super Cruise to my understanding. So really, if you're trying to actively defeat a system, it shouldn't really be taken into account, as this is absolutely forbidden by all of these companies. Next, let's look at a rather interesting quote from Consumer Reports. According to Consumer Reports, quote, "In Consumer Reports testing, we found that Cadillac Super Cruise's eye tracking technology ensures that the driver's eyes are open and looking forward toward the road. None of the other systems we tested use eye tracking. Rather, they prompt the driver to hold onto or apply pressure to the steering wheel. This is an insufficient way of measuring driver attention, and it provides little assurance that the driver is even awake. Because of the impressive ability of Tesla's autopilot to keep the vehicle centered in its lane, it's easy for drivers to become over-reliant on it," end quote. First, why is steering wheel touch insufficient? They don't really go into this. Unless you're trying to cheat the system, it works fine. And it's definitely more annoying than eye tracking, which some would say is better, including me. I think it's actually honestly better because it means you have to actually take part and move the steering wheel around. And second, the part of the quote that talks about how good Tesla's autopilot is speaks volumes. That means that Consumer Reports worries that the tech is so good that people don't really have to pay attention, so they might not. But isn't this the exact main point of the comparison? Which one works best? It seems pretty odd that they bury such a huge find down in another section of the report entirely. And finally, let's look at unresponsive drivers. Consumer Reports states, Super Cruise and Autopilot issue 2 visual warnings followed by an audible alert before they start applying the brakes to stop the vehicle in its lane. And then they turn on the hazard lights. The Super Cruise system will then call an emergency contact number, and the system is locked out until the car has been shut off and restarted. Similarly, Autopilot will go through the escalation process 3 times during a trip before it locks out the driver. This is all they really say about the two systems, yet they rank Super Cruise a light green, good, and Tesla neutral. Is this all due to the fact that the Super Cruise calls an emergency number? If so, that's a reasonable thing to give them extra credit for, but A, why wouldn't both Super Cruise and Full Self-Driving get good grades on this? And B, why doesn't Consumer Reports more carefully note the differences between the two and why they're giving the grades they do? And that's just a general comment. The whole thing is so unspecific. So from what we can tell, which again is not nearly as much as it should be, we can conclude that first, Consumer Reports is a ridiculous publication. They claim to do a study, but then they don't produce data in any usable form, and even their discussion of the various technologies is woefully lacking. And the biggest compliment they pay to any company on the tech front is to Tesla, just after they graded it lower than GM in a category. Secondly, in my opinion, from what Consumer Reports itself says here, and according to their data, Tesla should edge out Super Cruise. It's far and away better at the basic function of semi-autonomous driving. It works on most roads in the United States as opposed to Super Cruise, which works only on the major ones at this point. I would say that steering wheel force is better, i.e. more annoying than eye tracking, and perhaps that's why none of the other companies use eye tracking at this point. If full self-driving loses to Super Cruise on the unresponsive driver scale, that should at the most be a marginal loss. Safety-wise, it does all the steps, it just doesn't call 911 once it stops. So even by Consumer Reports metrics and even using even weighting, which is silly, Tesla should still win by a small margin. So after examining this study as best we can, is Cadillac GM Super Cruise better than Tesla's from a technical standpoint? Not at all. Super Cruise is very good, but it's not nearly at the same level as Tesla's full self-driving. And Tesla has since released their full self-driving beta that is leaps and bounds better than the 1.x software that Consumer Reports compared to Super Cruise. So the difference is even bigger than what they noted. In my opinion, Tesla is far and away better as a general purpose driver assistant now, has increased that lead recently with the beta release, and will be far earlier with level 4 autonomy than GM. The article seems to be written for a lazy public that wants a big headline, drama over facts, and a surprising conclusion over one that makes more empirical sense. Not that I'm surprised. Consumer Reports has been a pretty crappy publication focused on the older, tech-illiterate population. Anyone who knows anything about tech has learned to ignore their technical reports years ago. Okay, I hope you found this video fun and informative. I think it's really important for us to kind of break down sometimes when you see a headline, people just read the headline and they just go like, oh my God, what's going on with that? But when you really look at this, the report is complete garbage. And beyond that, even by their own standards, it seems like Tesla should actually win. So I think it's important for us to re-examine things like this and actually take a closer look at them. Hope you agree with me. If you do, definitely make sure you like the video and subscribe. And also definitely make sure you ask me questions in the comments or at my email address, which is DrKnowItAllKnows@gmail.com. Till next time, bye-bye.